to all the evil, to the extinguished wound of the eight-headed, well,
Petak and I, in the face of adversity with resilience like one, continue to report on events in Ukraine and beyond, around the world. All right, let's get to work.
And today, a lot has happened, for example, in Ukraine. People have started to rise up, truly rise up. I'm not afraid to use that word, against the TCC officers, the draft snatchers. They have started, well, you could say, to punish them, to put it mildly, or even more mildly, to give them a hard time, but still. And besides that, the circle of people close to Zelensky has started to shrink, and there's a lot of interesting things happening there.
Besides that, Zelensky is messed up with his own hometown as much as you can possibly imagine.
So subscribe if you haven't yet, and be surprised if you haven't done it already. And let's go! What's happening here? Here's what's going on. There was a shooting near the Polytechnic in Lviv. Online, people are talking about a conflict with the Territorial Recruitment Center. Wow, that's never happened before. Once again, there's a conflict between the Territorial Recruitment Center and the draft snatchers. No way. These are just the kindest souls, really. Nevertheless, on the evening of August 21st in Lviv, an unknown person opened fire on Bandera Street. What a wonderful street name. Before, there used to be Gagarin, Korolev, and other names. Now it's Bandera Street. Well, all right. On the evening of August 21st, near the Lviv Polytechnic University. It's also surprising they haven't renamed it Lviv Banderovщина yet. Anyway, the suspect, a man, possibly, as we're told, committed a murder as a result of a conflict. Well, I can imagine that. All right, let's move on a bit. An unknown person, as we're told, attacked a police officer who returned fire. Well, just imagine. You're an ordinary person who is cornered by all these terrible events, by these spiteful girls and boys whom social mobility suddenly catapulted them to the top, and they start saying that all of you should be sent to the front. Killed, punished, just because you don't want to serve in the army, and your children, and everyone else.
And so the man went out to walk his dog, or just went out to get some fresh air, or to smoke.
And then a crowd of those very same manhunters immediately ran up to him, who only dream of shoving everyone into a van at the first opportunity.
How many of them were there? A lot. It's not like, one person came up and politely asked, "May I see your documents, sir?"
Even here on this site, focus.ua, which is reporting about the incident, they show the guy being beaten. And then, somewhere here we have the browser. They're literally beating him, a group. I won't show that. Basically, there are a lot of these people here. They're kicking him, kicking an ordinary person.
Moreover, representatives of Swedish television became witnesses to another such, let's say, death mobilization.
Let's see what was happening there. Today, the videos are just piling up. Again, that's right. Mosfilm is filming actors like Yanina Sokolova personally come to Luhansk, who is suddenly a Ukrainian actress, or rather, a Russian one. And here they're showing us now what was happening in Kyiv when Swedish journalists started setting up all their television equipment there. And suddenly, this is what they filmed. Suddenly, they filmed like butchers. There's no other word for it. I saw this in my childhood. When I was a teenager, when I used to go buy meat at the city market, how, well, professional butchers handle carcasses. Not just handle, but cut up carcasses. Yes, let's put it that way. That's what they call it. And here we see professional manhunters dragging another victim down the street with a sense of duty, apparently. And the Swedes are just watching. They watch and think, oh, well, so imagine the police, there don't seem to be any of those mobilization officers here. Among the manhunters, only the police. The police, who are supposed to protect us, calmly drag and shove an ordinary person into a van without any hesitation, without a shadow of doubt, and smack him in the face with that E-score. And the Swedes are like, oh, okay, let's continue our report. But the good thing is that the whole world saw this. And personally, when I'm in Spain telling Spaniards, do you know what's happening on the streets of Ukraine? Well, there are literally tens of thousands of cases. Like, no, we don't know. It's not that they don't believe it. They do. As soon as I show them a video or tell them about it, so there is trust. But it's not something you show to every single person you meet. That's natural too. That's what acquaintances ask, like, what's going on in Ukraine? Is it really true? So I show them and they say, wow, seriously, what is this? Is this the 40s, like 1942 or 1943 or what? Are the times of Franco? They had Franco too, by the way. Things aren't so clear-cut with this Franco, so, well, whatever. Basically, we're told that in Lviv, the military enlistment office was checking the man's documents. After that, he stabbed one of the enlistment office employees with a knife, then rushed toward a police officer, and the officer shot him.
Well, just imagine this story. You're surrounded by 6 people, and you realize that you're literally about to be sent off to die.
And here they describe you as you're going, you're running somewhere, stabbing someone with a knife. They're describing you almost like a serial killer. In reality, most likely, this guy just went out to get some fresh air, maybe to walk his dog or just to walk himself, to look at the starry sky or at the dim streetlight across from the entrance. It doesn't matter. He went out to feel, well, more or less like a free person, and then you're surrounded by these baboon-like manhunters again. Naturally, you lose your temper and you do all sorts of things. And here they describe him as if he's, incredible, all that. By the way, the kid whom a manhunter was beating up on the street, the kid was, 11 years old or something?
Now, some Ukrainian media are describing him as if he's a kid who got money from Russian television for a provocation.
I mean, this jingoistic idiocy has reached such an absurd level that I have no words. I can't even describe it. It's just unbelievable how much they distort reality, how they swap black for white and white for black, trying to twist everything and show things that simply aren't happening.
But the reality is different. The same Irina Matraya, who anti-corruption investigators have already gotten to, is gradually revealing the whole scheme.
And there's a certain Vova involved. It turns out everyone is connected. And this whole nest of snakes, all those friends, all they do is try to squeeze out the last bit from every corner, suck everything dry, drain everything they can. Basically, it's all about the budget. And at the same time, they talk about patriotism, about how people should behave, and that everyone needs to go to the front. Let me show you another one of these girls. This is Alina Mercedes. Mercedes isn't her last name, it's a nickname, which she was given, you could say. And here sits this not-so-slim girl who presents herself as a volunteer. First, in terms of fundraising. And second, she claims to be a medic at the front, but honestly, I don't know when she's actually at the front. And she's sitting there, slouched, telling her story like, listen to this.
Have you seen, Machina? These are places for high school graduates where they spend, I think, 1.5 years before the army. And so our point is that young people should be forced into the army after school.
So she doesn't know Ukrainian. She constructs sentences incorrectly. She uses words incorrectly, but still. This girl with a broad, complex face, just back from the cosmetologist, is talking about how children, teenagers, should be sent to the army by force.
Girls and boys, because Russia isn't going anywhere, even if we ever defeat it.
Well, the fighters like this girl, whose whole lot in life before was to raise 5 kids and drink beer in front of her building entrance. And now social mobility has carried her straight to the top, and she's trying to talk about the fate of the country.
Rather, the fate of the state.
And the issue of draft dodging will always exist too. That's why we force all young people into the army. There, they take courses in Ukrainian propaganda, training, tactics, weapons, tactical medicine, and they fly FPV drones.
And it's even smiling. Just imagine, it's talking about how we're forcibly driving young people into these very concentration camps, basically.
There, we really push Ukrainian propaganda on everyone. So, if you had any doubts before, they'll make you believe that these boys and girls are truly right.
So, what do you think? What do you think of this Elon Musk? Honestly, I don't know how far they've gone. This same girl officially owns 2 Mercedes cars, which she obviously bought with her own salary. One of them cost something like $60,000 or $80,000, and the other one $30,000.
And the question arises, where does a volunteer, medicing, as far as I know, is broader Ukrainian, or rather, that's the new slang, that's for broader Ukrainians, and these ones, in a Cossack way, not like brothers, where do they get this from?
Well, where did she get those two? And that's not all. She also has an apartment there. She tried to scam an apartment from the families of the deceased. Her own fiancé, that very head, Da Vinci, who is now, well, Da Vinci, basically there's such a mess going on among them. This is just insane. And then another character with a weird-looking face and a big head says the following.
Yes, I'm his president.
This is a representative of the president's office, just like that very same Irina Mudraya, whom Zelensky brought with him, and he also brought Fedorov in 2019.
And now Fedorov has become his competitor. He wants to be president. We'll talk about this further.
Mudraya is being arrested now, and Galushchenko, the former ex-minister, is also about to be arrested. And this Mudraya, Zelensky's representative, illegally transferred 150 million hryvnias depending on the exchange rate. That's a huge amount of money.
And now this big-headed monster sitting in the car is making the following statement.
We trust the president of Ukraine during the war, or we trust the president of Russia during the war, or we simply don't get involved with Ukraine at all if we don't trust the president during the war, which is actually very difficult for Ukraine. And all this responsibility will not fall on the protesters. All this responsibility will not fall on the ministers, but it will again fall on the president.
In short, this clown is coming back from yet another club and trying to make sense of things. And right away, the head of the tax office says the following: irresponsibility.
One day, thereof irresponsibility and bribery is forever in the past.
You look at these so-called wonders, well, they're just complete freaks. I don't even know how else to call them. Another person says that Ukrainians shouldn't move to the villages, because even in the villages it will be expensive to live. It will be bad. So, remember, I showed you that person, the deputy, who said that all the Verkhovna Rada can do now is make Ukrainians' existence a bit more comfortable, to burn in hell more comfortably. Well, there you go. Here's another person echoing him wearing a white suit. What do you think about that?
So, you shouldn't leave too quickly, especially if it will be dangerous and difficult even in the village.
It will be just as difficult in the city as well.
If we switch to firewood, the next issue with firewood is that the biggest part of the cost is transportation. Transportation to consumers and transportation from where they are being cut, somewhere in the mountains or wherever they are being cut. Well,
in short, I'll spare you from having to listen to this person who, once again, doesn't speak Ukrainian at all. He's trying to say that it will also be difficult in the villages because firewood will be expensive. Basically, that's all that needed to be said. In his place, firewood will be expensive. Now, like, dear Ukrainians, you don't have enough money to do all this. But that's the first part of our moralizing ballet. And second, it's that Ukrainians, as far as I remember, are going AWOL from those camps in Germany. All of this is naturally connected to that recruitment officer. This is connected to that Buchenwald, roughly speaking, which they organize in the basement, those same recruitment officers. Several dozen Ukrainian servicemen who do not want to fight have escaped from 2 training camps in Germany, according to a report by Die Zeit. Sorry, I don't know German. Maybe that's not how it's pronounced, but still. And they talked to one of the escapees, and he told them everything about it. The report states that Shulgin ended up in Germany 10 days after being mobilized and was supposed to undergo basic military training. The conditions in the camp were, of course, comfortable. But in the end, not only was he not allowed to leave the training ground, and even while he was sick, but he was also hit in the chest and forced to do 50 push-ups. This was not done by the Germans. This was done by the other friendly Ukrainians, those very same ones, all sorts of sergeants and the rest of them. But even after that, they decided to leave, and they had left before, too. Well, in general, they did the right thing. A person should leave. No excuses like you have to serve some kind of corrupt official should really be considered excuses. And then, next thing, Zelensky in general has pushed it too far with his retaliatory strikes, or pre-retaliation, or post-retaliation, or whatever you want to call it.
To the point that Kryvyi Rih, his hometown, was hit so hard that there were 15 dead and 30 wounded? The statistics here are simply horrifying.
First of all, here is video of jet-powered drones, which means there are no air defense systems at all. The rocket drones just fly and hit the shopping center. By the way, I was told about this. On the second floor, there was a children's center, and basically the children were not evacuated during the air raid alerts. On one hand, that's bad. On the other hand, air raid alerts are happening all the time now. And if businesses start kicking people out of restaurants, theaters, cinemas, and other places during air raid alerts, then business will just end in an instant. So that's bad. But I'm just explaining how things are there. As a result, unfortunately, a lot of people died, and here are some shots showing how the attack was carried out. That is, Zelensky couldn't even manage to defend his own city. As I understand it, they were going to try to shoot down a jet drone with an assault rifle. Well, that's some real intelligence and resourcefulness. That's insane. Well, yeah, I'm not going to show this with all the swearing. The young man here isn't really showing anything good. In fact, nothing special at all. He's just swearing. But what was happening? Well, there's another video here. This was filmed, and here's another one here. By the way, on the left is a bombed-out building. It's the Nova Poshta warehouses. And over there, where the smoke is, that's actually the Solniknaya Gallery. It's one of the largest shopping complexes in Kryvyi Rih. Well, here too, everything is shown and explained.
Then there was another attack. Yes, Zelensky announced, of course, that there would be a retaliatory strike. He says that the strikes happened one after another, and today we know. We will definitely respond, writes Zelensky, right now in Russia, to what's happening everywhere, and this situation where some bomb others.
Then the others bomb the first ones. Then everything repeats. This cycle needs to be stopped. We just need peace, because it's impossible to go on like this. It doesn't matter anymore who's going under where and who's dying where. Sorry for the expression, I mean economically. But the fact that this system of mutual strikes only brings grief is undeniable. That's an absolute fact, undeniable.
So here's more proof. The Russian Federation shelled Kyiv with ballistic missiles and drones. One person was killed, others were injured. This strike was also terrible.
Not as bad as some previous ones, but still a person died and there's also an injured person. In the Darnitsky district, a fire broke out. Then they tell us that emergency services are working there. Everything is as usual.
Well, in short, against this background, among these so-called hawks, people like Zelensky, the wise ones, well, the wise ones are a separate matter. She supports the war only to the extent that it benefits her own well-being. Maslow's pyramid, so to speak, that's good.
There are also those who have suddenly kind of woken up now, and among them is the former Minister of Defense, Fedorov. Just imagine.
Zelensky brought him in back in 2019, as I said at the beginning. Again, I promise you, I'll explain everything right now. That same Fedorov talks about how corruption is preventing Ukraine from ending the war from a strong position. This is Fedorov, who apparently used to develop some kind of gaming apps and all that. That's what he's saying.
That in Ukraine, a corruption scheme continues to operate, which in his opinion prevents ending the war from a strong position. Well, let's leave aside the fact that he's dressed like Zelensky, with that black shirt, some kind of pajamas and all that. But the fact is, he only woke up after he was fired, even though before that he was saying, we will bomb, we will, by the way, drive them to suicide. He was saying something like that about the enemies. He even hired the well-known Sternenko as his advisor, who, frankly, is utterly disreputable. And now suddenly, when he was fired, pushed away from all those benefits, he started claiming that it's unfair, corruption. Can you imagine? Well, he writes, I would like to thank all the people who came out to the protests. It turns out I couldn't say anything before, because even if there was just a 1% chance of returning to the post of Minister of Defense, I had to wait.
Along with all the people who, well, you know, with him was Sternenko, who now drives a Mercedes worth over $300,000, who are literally stealing money by the truckload.
And he was picked up by this very Fedorov, who, again, accompanied Zelensky from the moment of his rise to his peak. Well, now it's already the decline, but still. Now he's telling his story, saying, oh, I couldn't say anything. They all change their stance so quickly that even alternating current can't compare. They change their stance at an incredible speed. And there will be even more of these sudden changes and flip-flops, because each of them will say, you know, those were orders, you know, I was forced, I didn't want to, they threatened my family. And I served there, I was a soldier, and I was given orders. And so on and so on. And this same Fyodorov, by the way, also wants to be president. Juan and I are just baffled here. Honestly, that's how it is. Sometimes Zaluzhny would jump in, or someone would say, let the Ukrainians run for president.
But now he's said so much that I don't even know who would choose him for the position of junior assistant to the senior janitor, this Zaluzhny, after saying that Ukraine doesn't need an economy.
And anyone who says that the economy is important is an enemy of the people, but you just have to know how to do it. It's a real talent to bury yourself like that. The guy is just digging his own grave. And Fyodorov answered whether he was going to run for president. He said that everything depends on the team, everything depends on the situation. Well, it's clear that yes, he's being groomed for the presidency. Moreover, he stated that elections are necessary, elections are important, and no outside shouting about elections being impossible matters. They can be held during wartime, like it doesn't affect him. Well, now let's take a look at other show-off leaders. Here we have, for example, this one here, telling us that everyone has profiles.
Professionals.
Here, a character with a complex, broad, smooth face is doing something. He says, we're warriors here in t-shirts, now we're also going to make ourselves into warriors with one. Alright, that's it. Now we're not brothers in arms anymore, and we're going to tell all sorts of things.
We're especially looking for UAV operators. We need them all the time. We still have open spots. We'll teach everyone to fly and make professionals out of you.
Yeah, flying into space, that's exactly how I imagine these flights. It's just wonderful. Then there's this kind of miracle. It talks, by the way, it's always performing in a little green t-shirt with a curly hairstyle and from his own apartment, decorated with little flags. And he has never fought anywhere, but he talks about how we're there now, like we're really there.
They struck at targets in Iran. This was done only jointly by Israel and the USA, and now Ukraine. Well,
yeah, a real mama's boy, such a military strike specialist, just unbelievable. No.
From Germany, Iran has actually announced that there will be a response. Well, yes, obviously, they're not even escalating, by the way. They're not even escalating very seriously there. So now let's talk about the fact that we are united in this situation. Yes, we need additional systems because we might...
And who is united? Excuse me, the journalist with her mama's boy, the mama's boy with borscht, the mama's boy with 2 liters of beer. Who is united with whom? Honestly, I don't understand what this is about. But all right, Juan and I aren't exactly big shots, so it's pretty hard to figure out. Well, I think you understood what we wanted to say with that very bird on the headline. And things aren't really going that well. I would say that for Zelensky's team, as far as we can tell so far, things are going downhill. Although there have been many such things before, and then all sorts of things happened, but we'll see. Bye, everyone.